Hi guys, I don't know about you, but I've been in a very rosy mood lately in that I've been craving my rose fragrances. I just figured I'd do an updated rose video. A few that I've parted ways with, I've got a few new ones. For the most part, they're still pretty much the same as my previous rose video. But as I've been in the mood for a rose fragrance lately, I figured I would just do a nice updated rose video for you all and see what's missing. There's always room for one more, and I feel like I'm still on the search for the perfect velvety red rose fragrance, simply because the rose is still my favourite flower. It is my favourite note. It's so classic, it's so beautiful, it's so timeless. Rose is still the cornerstone of perfumery, and it could be presented in so many different ways. I've got such a mixed bag or bunch of roses in my fragrance collection. Absolutely no order. I've got them all laid out on my bed next to me. They're all over the place. And we're going to just pick one at random and start there. Okay, let's just start with Stella McCartney EDP, the most loved rose fragrance, the one I've talked about the most, the one I've expressed a lot of love for the most. So let's just get this one out of the way first. I still do love it. This is the first experience of a good rose fragrance, and it still is a great one. It's just not as it was, and now my nose has been sport rotten. I don't tend to gravitate towards this anymore. It doesn't really give me the same vibe that it used to give me. It is a reformulation, but it's still a beautiful one. When I smell Stella, I feel like I'm smelling a purple rose. I do feel like I'm smelling a more sort of purple rose. It's not pretty pink and it's not lush and red. It used to be my going out scent. It used to feel much more plush and velvety than it does now, and now I think of it as more of a daytime summery scent, because it has more of like I think it's got, I believe there's mandarin, amber, peony. The mandarin definitely takes quite a centre stage with the rose. It's quite citrusy, which is why it's light and easy to wear. Also quite fizzy, juicy, just not as heavy as it used to be, but it's still totally gorgeous. It's still a cult classic, and it deserves a place in anyone's fragrance collection if they love their roses. So that is Stella McCartney EDP. Give it another sniff. Yeah, she's a classic. I love her. So next is another of my favourites, and it's one that I've seen get a lot more love in the past year. Victor and Rolf, Dancing Roses, and this is part of their Magic collection. This is such an easy one for me to love because it's so sweet and it's so syrupy and it's so delicious. It's quite sexy and it's just an instant smile on my face. So this is a thick scent, unlike Stella, which I'd say was sort of thinner. This is a thick, syrupy, sweet scent, and it's like having lychee syrup, sweet and sticky, with the boozy cherry brandy. Obviously this is Dancing Roses, so it should be more rosy. You can definitely smell the rose bouncing around in there, but it's not the main note. But lychee, I always find, is a fruit that kind of smells like a delicate rose. It has that delicate floral flavour, and it's quite rosy. So the rose easily plays a part amongst that note anyway. Even though the scent is quite thick and boozy, it's not heavy. Like it's very present, and it has a lovely performance. People do smell this, and it is a compliment getter, but it's not overpowering. It's just, and it doesn't change too much either. It's pretty much what you smell at the top is what you get. But it's a thick, syrupy scent, which makes me feel like it should almost be like an oil. That's how it smells to me. Really thick, but not, it doesn't smell oily, but it's thick like oil. But beautifully sweet, beautifully boozy, and very romantic. This is a nice one to wear on a date. So yeah, that is Dancing Roses. It's nice to see it getting a lot more love, and that is by Victor and Rolf, the Magic collection. Next is another boozy scent, but very different to the last one. This is Rose Trombone by Orchestre Parfums, and this one I bought this year, and I'm really enjoying it. This smells nothing like anything else I've got. This to me smells professional. It's sweet, but it's not stickly, syrupy sweet like this one. This is more like sharp, sugary, like berry sweet, you know, like sharp, sugary berries. There's no berries, it's a pear. It's the pear that's sweet in here. Imagine the smell of very highly polished wood, strong lacquered wood, and you've got a big red rose underneath all of that shiny polished wood. Yeah, the rose is definitely big and red in here, and it's sort of pushing up through this very highly lacquered polished wood, and the sweetness isn't really on the rose, it's on the wood. It's got like a sharp edge to it, it really has. And I find it quite a professional scent. I think it's one you would wear to the office or one you would wear in a sort of corporate environment. And the boozy note in here is rum. Perhaps the rum is stopping it from being too dry because it is a woody rose. And the bottles are quite professional as well. They're quite simple really, but I like how straightforward and quite modern they are. There's a bit of an artistic edge to it. So yeah, I really like the bottles. So there you go, Rose Trombone by Orchestre Parfums. Next I'm going to talk about it's actually a little mini that I've got. I only got it this year. And I almost blind bought this perfume so many times and something stopped me. But it's discontinued, so I don't think it's very hard to get this one now anyway. But this is Bottega Veneta Eau de Velours. It's basically a leather and rose. It's a leather rose scent, and I hear good things about this one. You never know how things are going to go. You never know how it's going to be, and I just thought, I'm not going to keep blind buying things. It's silly. And I'm glad I didn't. Not to say that it isn't a bad scent. It's actually very nice. It's very pleasant, but there's nothing particularly special about it. It's a soft leather. There's a pretty sweet floral in here. I wouldn't say it's classically rosy particularly. The opening is lovely. I think the opening of this scent is really lovely, but it seems to disappear very quickly and it becomes pleasant, but nothing special. Like I say, there's something giving me a very slight headache in here. I don't know what it is, but it is very pleasant, and I am pleased to have this little mini, and it is incredibly cute. Eau de Velours by Bottega Veneta. Next we've got a spicy one by Atelier Cologne. This is a 30ml. I don't ever wear this. I don't know why, because it is really, really nice actually. Rose Anonyme. I don't know why I don't wear this. It's really lovely. It's just doesn't seem to ever be something I want to gravitate to. I don't know, but I'm still pleased to have it. Like, I know I'm going to wear it at some stage, but so far it's just not one that I pulled for. Maybe on the odd occasion going to bed I might have just reached for it just to give it a chance. But yeah, it's a spicy rose. It's an incense rose. Definitely one I would probably pull for in an evening. I think there's oud in this. I definitely get a bit of oud. So that's Rose Anonyme. Next up, another spicy one, but this one is so sweet and powdery, and it has oud. We know that, it's talked about so often. This is Oud Bouquet by Lancome. I reserved this one for when I'm going out, which hasn't really been much this year, let's be honest. Nobody really has been going out much. The rose, the oud, the praline, the saffron, they all explode, all equally balanced, and it's just one of those scents which will grab attention no matter what. This wasn't a love at first sniff. I didn't like this at first because I didn't have any experience of oud. This is my first experience of oud, but now I love it. It's an addictive scent. Big powdery red rose. It's addictive powdery woods or oud. And the praline is just so sweet. It's one of those scents that if you sniff it from the cap, it's the scent that will grab hold of your nostril hairs and never let go. Not that I have nostril hairs. It's so rich and pungent that it will just be there. So it's a great one to wear out in the evening. Very decadent, very luxurious. Oud Bouquet by Lancome. This is Tobacco Rose by Papillon Artisan Perfumes. The amazing Liz Moore is of course the creator of Papillon. And this is a beautiful niche house, very creative house. A tobacco and rose scent, although there's no tobacco listed in here, but you do get a beautiful nuance of tobacco smoke. A lovely tobacco that's wafting out of the door into the garden, and it's wafting over a very damp, dewy rose that's also surrounded in moss. I think there is moss in here, and I think it is very mossy. It's quite a sharp, mossy scent, but a sharp tobacco scent. And although the tobacco is quite a dry scent, the rose is quite damp, so you've got this beautiful combination of those two things. And I find it very sexy, this scent. I think it's a beautiful, sexy rose. It's very much a honeyed rose. But it's not sweetened synthetically at all. It's all very natural smelling. Tobacco Rose by Papillon Artisan Perfumes. Beautiful, beautiful rose fragrance. So speaking of honey, we've got another honeyed rose. And this time it is by Guerlain. And this is their collection called the Art et Matière, or Art and Materials line. And this is Rose Barbare. Now, this is actually quite an aldehyde heavy fragrance, but it doesn't have that Chanel No. 5 thing going on at all. The aldehydes in here just give it this slight sparkle. And the rose in here is very honeyed. In fact, the honey, it's not sweet. Again, it's not a sweet rose, but it's more simplified. It has a very much a vintage feel. This is a mature scent to me. Like many Guerlains in this range, there's this beautiful weightless marshmallow-like powder that seems to just drift around the edges of the fragrance, and this one has that as well. So that is Rose Barbare, and that is by Guerlain. There's a bit more room, which we definitely are going to need. So speaking of an aldehyde heavy fragrance, I've got one here from Chanel, and this is Misia, and this is not a rose heavy fragrance, but I've included it because it does have two types of rose. It's a Bulgarian rose and something called a grass rose. The roses are not actually heavy in here. They're playing their part with the violet and the iris and making a very lipstick style scent. That waxy style scent you get from lipsticks, from classic vintage lipsticks. This is exactly how this smells. It's not sweet. There's really not much sweetness in here. In fact, it's almost like a crayon, like a waxy crayon. But there's just something so classic about this. And slightly vintage smelling, but it's just done well. And it's quite a thick, heavy scent. So even though it is actually more violety than rose, it wouldn't be that gorgeous lipstick style scent without the rose playing its part. So there you go. That is Misia, and that is by Chanel. Right, now speaking of violet, one of my absolute favourites is Eau de Satin Mood, and I haven't got much wear out of this yet because I haven't been going anywhere. This is like my ultimate evening out, my wintry night out rose fragrance, and of course it's very oud heavy. To me, this is a heavy oud. I still don't know if this bottle's black or blue, I really don't. But I've always called this my dark blue rose scent. It's such a strong, projecting powerhouse of a scent. It's sweet. Oh, it's so powdery and sweet. The rose is the sweet part here. The violet. And then of course you've got the oud, which is actually quite medicinal. It's quite sharp. It's very, very strong. Edging on being fumey. Even a slight rubber nuance, I would say, in here. But it is very, very addictive. It's very dark, which is what gives it this sort of gothic, romantic feel. So that is heavily fingerprinted, but that is Eau de Satin Mood. And I just love these heavy cube bottles. From the same house we have another rose fragrance, and this is about as far away from being Eau de Satin Mood as possible. So this rose is L'Eau à la Rose. I really enjoyed this one. This bumped Rose Gypsy by Dior out of my collection. That's now sold. This is a featherlight pink petal rose. Very weightless, very airy, and very simple, much like Rose Gypsy from Dior was. Rose Gypsy had a much more green touch to it, much more of a watery green style, and this one doesn't have that. And having this made me realise actually how much I prefer the scent without the green, and it was really that simple. A delicate pink rose. It's got a grapefruit note in here which gives it a lift. And actually, it's always lifted. It never really comes down. It's not a grounded scent. It really does fly away. It's not a long-lasting scent at all. It's very much like how you expect soap to smell when it's rose-scented. It's very light, but it's a pretty pink rose. I like the amount of sweetness this has. I like its innocence and its uncomplicatedness and its prettiness. And it's a very easy one to wear. So that is L'Eau à la Rose. There are still so many here and I'm getting tired, so we need to kind of speed things up a little bit. Next, let's talk about Elie Essence No. 1 Rose. Now this is probably the most powdery one that I've got here in all my rose fragrances. This is definitely, yeah, a powdery rose. Ever so sweet, ever so lovely. I love this colour. Look at this colour. If you can get that. It's just so dark and beautiful and rich. This is like breathing in marshmallow powder right up your nose. And rose powder. Rose powder, marshmallow powder, up your nose, really sweet. Not dusty though. It doesn't really fly away. There's a nice bit of thickness in here. It has a slight mature edge to it, you know, which I think powdery scents sometimes do. But this is playful, definitely very Turkish delight. So maybe it is a gourmand. If I think of food, then it makes it a gourmand, I guess. But anyway, very pretty scent from Elie. That is Essence No. 1 Rose. We're in need of some Tom Ford. Let's get some Tom Ford in here. Noir Dinoir. Okay, so this is another evening fragrance for me, and it's one that I enjoy around winter because it's cozy and it's rich and decadent. So what we have in here is truffle and rose, patchouli. Now there's a lot of patchouli in here, and there are days where the patchouli can smell stronger than other days, and that's the days I don't tend to wear it or even like it. Other days I get more of the truffle. And the rose in here, it's not, I wouldn't call this a big rosy scent. So it's too dark and too rich and too dry and chocolatey to be just a rose scent. If there was rose in here, it'd be a chocolate coated rose, put it that way. But the truffle keeps it very earthy, very, very earthy, like almost not mushroomy, but is a very strange wet damp earth scent, which I think is coming from this truffle note. I don't always get that, but I'm smelling a lot more chocolate in this today. Rose is providing this kind of romantic heart, I suppose. It's just that it's wrapped up in truffle and patchouli and chocolate and things that are very dark. Next is Lancome Noir from Maison Christian Dior. I didn't pull for this at all this year. I don't know why. I know I love it. It's a fruity rose. It's a very light fruity rose. It's sweetened with lemon and raspberry. It has the watery green Dior touch that I used to get from Rose Gypsy. Such a pretty one, this. And it kind of, I never thought about it before, but now it actually quite reminds me of, you know when you get a box of Turkish Delight and you get the lemon flavoured ones and the rose flavoured ones in the same box. If you smell those two flavours together, kind of is like this, because it's a mixture of both rose and slight citrus, and the sweetness and the kind of silky beautiful rose. It's all melded together, and it's quite sparkling as well, but it has got that slightly green watery touch to it, and it is such a beautiful rose scent for summer or for spring or for any time. But obviously it's lifting and refreshing, so it is more sort of a summery scent. But yeah, the Col Noir, stunning rose fragrance. So sticking with Dior, it's just a little honourable mention here, just a quick mention. This is Gris Dior. This used to be called Gris Montaigne. Again, it's a beautiful rose. This is a rose and patchouli. And if it wasn't for the amount of patchouli in here, I would have a bottle of this, because I can smell how gorgeous the rose is in here. It's quite a soapy rose, but it's incredibly elegant. My sister's worn this and it smells absolutely beautiful on her. There's something so classy. It's got that chic French elegance. But unfortunately the patchouli just stops me from loving it, and it just gives me a very slight headache. So I've got my little decant, which, you know, it's nice for reference, but other than that I can't wear it really. So that is Gris Dior. So staying with that kind of fresh watery rose style scent, next up we have Flora Botanica by Balenciaga, and I barely reach for this one now, to be honest. Again, it's quite a soapy fragrance. I don't find this to be rose heavy at all. In fact, I find this to be more about the green stems and the leaves. The green stems and leaves are very much still in water. There is a hint of rose. I mean, you know the stems are from a rose, put it that way, but I don't think it's a particularly big rose scent. There's a note of cannabis in here, and also mint, I believe. Let me just give this another sniff. Yeah, no, you do get the mint. It's not strong, it's not typically minty, but there's a sparkling fresh edge to it, which once you know it's mint, you can smell the mint. But I think maybe the cannabis note perhaps is giving me a headache in here. This is very subjective to the weather and to how I'm feeling, and it's not very often I can wear this one, but I still won't get rid of it because it's very unique. There's nothing that I've smelled so far that smells like this, and like I say, when I'm in the mood for it, it just hits the spot. Beautiful presentation, beautifully artistic abstract bottle. I do love that very much about it. So yeah, Balenciaga, Flora Botanica. So next is another fresh watery star rose. It's quite a new acquisition. It's a blind buy. Now this is from the house of Lubin, which is a very old fragrance house, French fragrance house that was started I think in 1798. More of a newer presentation for their bottles. What a presentation it is as well. It's so stunning and it feels gorgeous in the hand. It's actually prettier in life than it is on the screen. Like I can see it looks beautiful on the screen, but in life it's even more beautiful, and it's so simple and elegant and just exquisite. Anyway, this fragrance is obviously rose, but there's a top note of grapefruit, which I really love. Now this, like I say, it was a blind buy. It was a seller on eBay, crazy good price, and I took the chance and I bought it. And it didn't come with a box, so that's what took the price right down as well. I think the main note here is the grapefruit. I love grapefruit. It's such a sparkling, refreshing fruit to have, and this is like a fizzy grapefruit wine with a hint of rose and not much else, but it's done well. Actually, I'll tell you what it's like. It's rose lemonade. It's like a rose lemonade, only slightly more grapefruity, but it doesn't last longer than about an hour. It really doesn't. It's so beautiful when you first spray it, but it just drifts away to nothing, and it's such a shame. Very pretty scent. Maybe it's just my skin, perhaps it's stronger on other people. So next, from the house of Homme & Jane, a house that I do enjoy it very much, is Taif. Now Taif or Taif is a type of rose, and this is actually quite a fruity rose scent, but it's not bright and sparkling and light like the others that I've mentioned. This has actually got quite a bit of warmth and depth to it. There's a date note in here, and the date is quite a warm, fruity. It's quite dark actually. It's a fruit that's quite dark, but it has a warmth to it, and it's a lovely balance for this rose in here. There's a slight plasticky edge to the rose in here. There's this weird plasticky style scent. I appreciated this one the more I wore it, and it's because of the note of the dates, and also there's an amber. I think there's amber in here, giving it this warm fruitiness. It's an interesting scent, and I really love it. It's a good all-rounder and a nice signature scent for me. So yeah, I really enjoy this one. So that is Taif Rose by Ormond James. So next we have Roses Berberanza. The very sweet, very fruity rose. This has honey, it has rum, it is very boozy, it's very thick. It has so much sweetness. This is tropical fruits in a syrup. And then you've got this pistachio bringing you this kind of funky, nutty quality. And then you just drown the whole lot in rum and honey. Imagine that. Someone's likened this to those Greek sweets, those little Greek sweets that are very oily. I can't remember what they're called. I can imagine the colour of this sweet fruit syrupy juice that I'm talking about would be the same kind of colour as this. That is Roses Berberanza by Maison Lancome. So from the House of Mancera we have next Roses and Chocolate. And that sounds more edible than it smells, but it is beautiful as well. When I think of Roses and Chocolate, this is not the sort of scent that comes to mind. I think Noir Dinoir has more roses and chocolate, to be honest with you, only that's much darker. This is much more light and fizzy. The rose in here is very soapy, and the chocolate content is more like a very, very light milk chocolate. Very, very light. Although I think the note actually is called dark chocolate, but I find it very light and milky. But soapy rose, so it's a strange combination. Quite a clean, fizzy style of scent, and it's very playful, it's very fun, and it's a lovely one actually by Mancera. It's not too strong. Yeah, just very enjoyable rosy fragrance. So again, that is Roses and Chocolate. Sorry about the lighting. Roses and Chocolate by Mancera. So next is another from Mancera, and this is Roses Vanille. And this is one that I have been reaching for a lot. I really enjoy this. Very addictive. And obviously, aside from having roses and vanilla, there's a note of sugar in here. Incredibly sweet. Now, this is the scent that I've often said reminds me of a jammy dodger. And what a jammy dodger is this. This is the biscuit we have here in the UK. It's been going since, I think, the 80s. But it's a strawberry jam-filled biscuit. And it's delicious. It's lovely. It's a classic. But it reminds me of this. Now, there's no rose flavouring in this biscuit, but there's a lot of biscuitiness in this fragrance, and the rose is so jammy, sweet and sticky, that it reminds me of jam. And it's a scent that, despite its syntheticness and its boldness, it's so addictive. And the more I smell it, the more I can't stop. And it's beautiful, and I love it, and I can't stop. So that is Roses Vanille. So the next one is from Montal, and I believe these are sister companies. Montal and Mancera are both sister companies. And Intense Cafe is the fragrance, and this is often compared to Roses Vanille. This one is much quieter, slightly smoother, and it has a massive hit of coffee when you first spray it. It's not as biscuity, it's not as confident and, dare I say, obnoxious as Roses Vanille. It's much more refined, smooth, and you've got much more of a coffee style. So this beautiful rose in here stops it being just a boring coffee and vanilla sort of fragrance. It's a stunning rose actually. It's the rose is far more evident and refined in here than in this one. Shame the coffee doesn't last longer, but it is a beautiful coffee in the beginning. It is a really beautiful one, and yeah, that is it. That's Intense Cafe by Montal. Now, if you watch this channel and you know me, you'll see there's a shocking lack of Parfums de Marly here. And that's what we're going to end with. We're going to end with Parfums de Marly, because how could I not include my beautiful Delina in this beautiful rose collection of fragrances. Those that love it, really have a passion for it. And those that don't, either don't like rhubarb or don't particularly like typically pink girly sort of fragrances maybe. I've been hit very hard with the Delina stick, no question. I really do love this fragrance. I actually wore it today. She was definitely the prettiest part of my day. So we've got rose, we've got peony, we've got lychee, rhubarb, we have some bergamot in here. It's a plush velvety rose fragrance. It's quite powdery, but it's also very, very bright and quite sharp from the rhubarb. You've definitely got to love rhubarb to love Delina. A kind of sharp top note, but very much softened out and made exquisite and luxurious with, like I say, this beautiful powdery rose and this beautiful big peony, and the lychee is so sparkling and delicate. So based on the fact that I'm still very smitten and well aboard the hype train when it comes to Delina, I always wondered how I'd feel about Delina Exclusive. I didn't bother trying it out for some time because I just figured, well, it sounds like it's going to be very similar, what's the point? And I was very lucky to come by a sample, and that was offered to me by the very lovely Sal. She's got a really beautiful channel, so definitely go over and check her out, show her some support and love. And she sent me a sample of a Delina Exclusive, and I in turn sent her a sample of Parfums de Marly Athalia. So we both ended up falling in love, completely head over heels. So she ended up buying a bottle of Athalia, and I ended up buying a bottle of Delina Exclusive. We are both Parfum de Marly pushers. To most people, this could seem redundant or excessive. Now, when I first tried Delina Exclusive, I instantly recognised that beautiful Delina DNA. I just got that gorgeous hit of all the powderiness and the velvetness. Now, I do love the rhubarb, the sharp rhubarb and the fruity content in the original Delina, but it does lend itself to being slightly more day wear, slightly more summery. Delina Exclusive, you've got this beautiful velvety powdery base that Delina has, that powdery rose, that addictive quality, but you've also got oud in here. The addictive base of Delina is elevated with this oud, and actually it makes it more richer and cozier and gourmandish in a different direction. Instead of it being a fruity direction, it goes into a more biscuity direction. And it becomes a warmer scent with much better projection, much better performance, and makes it far more suitable for a night out or for a more sort of special occasion. And on that note, I think we are done. Hope you enjoyed the video. Are there any here that you're dying to try? And what is your favourite rose fragrance? I would absolutely love to know. I need to go and have some dinner. I'm absolutely starving and this has taken me forever to film. So that is the end of the video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you all again soon on my next one. Take care. Over and out.